Hey everybody, welcome to this video on the interesting topic of trying to get to grips with some of the more, let's say, mystical, ritualistic principles having to do with Hellenistic astrology. And that's a very interesting day because these issues are addressing the things that perhaps can be read between the lines of a natal chart analysis because they are not that obvious from a natal chart itself, and this investigation leads us sort of underneath the principles that have to do with investigating natal charts. And we are of course talking about sort of a ritualistic principle having to do with the more mysterious things having to do with our natal chart. And of course the Hermetic Lots are the factors that have a lot of this principle in them of sort of referring to something that is quite elusive at some points, but also pretty clear when you understand what the reason is behind their use in the Greek Hellenistic material, of course. So yeah, let's have a look at that and enjoy this. Okay, let's get on with it. Well, I just realized that when we are investigating all this material, one could say that this study itself is a ritual, one that you are exposed to as a student. And perhaps you could even say that it's an initiation, if you will, that you as a student of Greek Hellenistic astrology are confronted with or engaging in. And the ritual that I'm talking of is sort of me introducing these principles and conceptualizations behind this astrological material, of course, based on Schmidt's presentations and his insights. And the initiations themselves consist of the experiences or the realizations you have using it. Seeing things perhaps differently, understanding things about yourself or about your life or about your experiences through studying this material. And I say this because the three-tier model of an emanation from the highest level to the most base level, so to speak, introduces a level of operation of astrological factors hardly ever investigated on its own terms, which is the world of coming to be and passing away. And if you're not quite sure what I mean by that, have a look at the first two videos. And to repeat, the world of coming to be and passing away is presented conceptually by the lot of fortune and the places, the houses that is, counted from the lot of fortune. So now many astrologers will perhaps argue that the natal chart in itself is sufficiently equipped for investigating the world around us, as the 12 topical places, the houses, represent material objects. They represent people and stuff in the world around us. And isn't that what we normally use to investigate concrete events in the 12 worldly domains of a natal chart, the people, concrete topics, events, etc. So that leaves something for me to clarify for you studying this material. So what I need to clarify for you and myself is this question. What is the difference between the places, the houses in the natal chart and the fortune places? What is the difference between them? And to be honest, I'm not sure I can at the moment. I'm not sure I can answer that question sufficiently for your consideration and for me being satisfied with the answer that I come up with. And perhaps I can, in the course of making these videos, or perhaps only at the end of all the videos dedicated to this interesting topic. So if astrologers are satisfied that the places in the natal chart are enough to delineate concrete events and material influence of all kinds, then the question of course remains, why the need for fortune places? Why were they introduced in Hellenistic astrology? Because in Hellenistic astrology, the natal places, the 12 houses, were indeed also associated with specific concrete topics around us. So why were the fortune places introduced? So that's an intriguing question. So yeah, that is the task that I have before me. So let's get on with it. And let me first rely on how Schmidt talked about all this material. So let's have a look. So having talked about all this and introduced all the principles having to do with, for instance, the Hermetic Lots, which is only one thing that we can try to investigate with the fortune principles in a natal chart, and of course the fortune houses as well. So let's have a look at the questions that hopefully can be answered with doing this investigation of your natal chart and everybody's natal chart. So let's ask this first question or answer it. In the natal topical place where your lot of courage, necessity and nemesis are located, have you experienced any results or concrete facts related to the significations of these lots? As I talked of, was the topical place, the house where your a lot of courage reside, is that indeed a topic in your life where you were meant to develop a sense of courage and go beyond what you dared up until that moment that you were challenged to take action in that specific field? Is the location of the natal topical place the house where necessity resides? Does that have to do with some mercurial stuff that was happening in your life or that you undertook and then resulted in things that you needed to solve or come to grips with? And is the place of nemesis, the natal topical place, the house where nemesis is located, is that the place where something was completely stuck and then you had to deal with that? So indeed, that's an important question. So we're going to investigate these, of course. Again, the other question is, do you cover the issues or the subjects of the place where the lot of Eros is located, and is your hope set on the topics of the natal topical place, the house where the lot of victory resides? And the other question is, what about the fortune places? Are the fortune places where these Hermetic lots are located more important in some sense, or are they different in some sense? So again, this is something that we need to investigate, which is a very interesting thing to do, of course, with all these charts that we have at our hands. Okay, the other question is, do you have a planet which is located in the same image as one of these Hermetic lots? And the question then, is that planet, the significations of that planet, is it part of the events that characterize the lot, the part? So, and again, an interesting question. What happens with a planet located together with such, with one of these 7 Hermetic lots? Yeah. Again, do you recognize being blind to the issues of a Hermetic lot when its domicile master, the manager of that specific lot, is in aversion with it? That's an important thing that Schmidt addressed in his tutorial on this interesting topic of the Hermetic lots. Planets that are in aversion are not able to see and thus not able to testify to whatever is happening with a specific location in the natal chart. And in this case, we're talking about the location of one of the Hermetic lots. And when the domicile master is in aversion with it, you are sort of blind to the principles that are presented by this specific lot. So, for instance, when it's a lot of Eros, you are pretty blind to whenever somebody's coming on to you, and in a romantic sense, so to speak. You just don't recognize that. Because, why is that? Because the Hermetic lot has a manager that is not at home, so to speak, and does not want to address or is not aware of what it needs to address. So that's an interesting take on aversion, planets in aversion with some other factor in a natal chart. So interesting. One of the next principles that we can investigate is, of course, the fortunes of the domicile master of the rising image, because it has to do with the ascendant is the ruler of the first place in your chart. Which planet is it, and does that Hermetic lot related to that planet have a more important role in that person's life or in your life? So interesting to investigate that, of course. Because when you have Mercury, Mars or Saturn as the domicile master of the rising image, that results in a fortune lot. And when it's either Venus or Jupiter, then it yields a daimon lot. So that's interesting, because it might be that that principle is more recognizable, or has a very specific role in your life. So the question is, does this specific lot have a more significant role in the native's life, because the domicile master of the rising image is so closely related to character and personality? So the domicile master of the rising image has fate-related implications in our lives. So can we see that reflected in the specific lot of the domicile master of the rising image, especially when you take into account, for instance, when we're talking about the fortune lots of courage, necessity, and nemesis, it is strongly suggested that the principles having to do with these planets, these lots, sorry, actually have a lot to do with the actions of the native, him or herself. So then you can perhaps say that you're personally the cause of what happens with these three lots, of course. So that's interesting. So yeah, we have a lot of material before us, and we will be investigating all these things. So yeah, that's pretty neat, right? So again, thank you for listening, and we will be investigating all these interesting things that I talked about in the previous slide. And of course, I do all this work in honor of the monumental efforts of Robert Schmidt and his wife Eleanor Black, who unfortunately have passed away. So we must take effort to further this very, very deep and very interesting material for the greater public. So yeah, thanks for joining me in this investigation, and I highly appreciate your support in all this. So thank you, and let's get on with the next video.